Good morning. It's the 1st of July 2023, and I'm joined by Nicky Mendham, who is a human design expert this morning. And Nicky had the idea for us to come on screen together and to explain to you and just talk about the energies of this full moon in Capricorn, which is coming up on the 3rd of July, so in 2 days' time. Now, personally, I'm already feeling it. So I know that a lot of Nicky's advice this morning is going to be based on the themes that are coming up from the human design frequencies, and I will be talking through the astrological meaning and how you can do this work for yourselves, because very much this is like a personal development thing, a guide for you to be able to do some deep inner work at this time. So thank you, Nicky, for joining me. Would you like to just say a few words about the kinds of things that you'll be discussing in our session today?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. What I'll be looking at is the background themes that are going on the planet. So very much like astrology, it's the experience that we were all receiving, and and I'll be giving some hints and tips on how to effectively navigate it. You know, teach you how to become the observer rather than getting absorbed into it, because we've got a lot that's happening at this full moon. So if you're pre-warned, then
Mm.
hopefully we can keep out of all of that sludge and stay positive and carry on with what we're here to be doing rather than getting called into the drama.
Yes, and it's having that real awareness, isn't it, that there is this sludgy time. So I would just like to speak about that first so
Mm.
that people can be really aware of what this full moon is bringing up. So at any full moon, we have the sun opposite the moon. Now, that gives an exact opposition, and an opposition is not easy to deal with because it calls us to constantly go, am I dealing with this thing or this thing, this thing or this thing? And you're trying to deal with both at the same time. Now, the moon is the fullest, so it's like metaphorically and literally shining a light on what we need to be feeling and thinking, and our emotions feel more heightened generally at a full moon. So it's like literally more light is shed on that thing. Now, this particular full moon, the sun is currently in Cancer, and on the 3rd of July, it will be at 11 degrees of Cancer. So, what I would really recommend is, and I'm going to just share my chart on screen with you now. Um, 1 second, so that I definitely share the right screen, seeing as we're going to be recording this. Here we go. Hopefully that will show on screen there. So, for example, here on the left of the screen, this is my birth chart, and it shows where the sun will be, also close to Mercury in Cancer, on the 3rd of July. Now, it just so happens that in my chart, the sun is coming towards the end of my 8th house and into the 9th house. And the moon will therefore, on the full moon, be right at the end of the 2nd house, moving into the 3rd. Now, I can already feel these energies, and I've set myself the intention that what comes up in terms of 8th house, 2nd house, which is all about values, karma, understanding myself, my personal worth, all of those things that are having a light shone on them. My intention is to close off some cycles and write it in my book. So this is me doing the whole moon, my deepest emotions, going into 3rd house, which is me writing the book. Now, what you will also know, hopefully, is that Pluto is in Capricorn at this time. So Pluto's in Capricorn from the 11th of June, and it's going retrograde. It won't go back into Aquarius until January 2024. So we are in this period of Pluto when I say going backwards, the retrograde motion is just how it appears to go backwards from the perspective of us on Earth. And it's like a period of review and reflection where we get to review what happened during Pluto in Capricorn last time. What have we still got to unearth? What have we still got to bring to the surface and look at? And Pluto deals with taking us to the outer extremes of ourselves. It's like our own personal outer bounds. So anywhere in our lives where we've had to deal with extremes and the whole life and death cycle, that could be coming up. Now, when I say the life and death cycle, I mean of anything. So it could be a former version of yourself. It could be a part of yourself that wasn't fully closed off or grieved for or completed or fully healed. So this is the type of self-development work that could be coming up now. And it would be great if you could just talk a little bit about that, Nikki. Does that translate to what's happening in terms of the human design frequencies you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always fascinated by how our work links up, so succinctly. And with when we're looking at the human design chart, you can see here that we are in a cross of tension. And what that means, from a background frequency on the planet, according to the human design system, it's been led here by the 39th gate, which is the gate of provocation. And just as you're explaining about things coming up, that retrograde, getting us to just recall and have a look at things again, I'm certainly feeling it in a sense of grief. Because with this lead energy being in the 39th gate here, it's reaching out to the 55th gate, which is all about abundance. But if we don't feel abundant, then the opposite of that is lack. And so it brings up, and certainly it's brought up for me, a real theme of grief this last few days. Actually, I'm already starting to get into that, and tears have been rolling, which is great. There's a recognition there. But for many years I repressed my grief. I as we were talking earlier, I haven't really lost many people that are close to me. I don't come from a very close family. So of those people that I have lost, I wasn't really that close to them. And that was my belief of grief. Somebody hasn't died, so I'm not grieving. But what I hadn't realized is grief really is that feeling of lack, that we've lost something, that we don't have something. And that can translate to relationships. It can translate to, lost connections with friends, with family. It can translate to money, the lack of money. So it's really calling us at this moment in time to use this time of tension, use this time of provoking to really help us shift on our grief, what we feel as lack, and really start to trust that the universe has got our back, to really understand that everything that we need, not want, two very different things, but everything that we need for our evolution is there. And this full moon in particular is really showing that, because we've got this channel here that's connected, the 360, and this is the channel of mutation. Now, if you can stay out when you are provoked, if you can stay out of victimhood, blaming other people for rattling your cage, not getting to complaining, if we can avoid that victimhood, then there's a real opportunity at this point to take that quantum leap, to actually be the observer, is to see the gift in what somebody else is showing you. When somebody's triggering you, it's an amazing opportunity just to sit with your emotions. Don't give it an outlet. Don't be looking for why somebody has triggered you. We don't know where these emotions come from. They could be cosmic. They could be something from our family lineage that we're carrying. It might have nothing to do with us. So we don't actually know where our emotions come from. So if we can just sit there and go, right, grief is rising up in me at this moment. and not place that with anybody else and just hold it and face the grief, then that's going to shift mountains. It's so profound. But there is, within the transits from a human design perspective, this 36th gate is appearing. And what this does is sometimes it gives us a fear that we are emotionally inadequate. And so, of course, as you've mentioned, full moon is about, the rising of the emotions, the rising of tension within the emotions. So it's about really trying to not suppress the emotion. This isn't about suppressing emotions. This is about holding space and allowing it to come up and be processed. Because each time we push grief, anger, fear, whatever it is that's coming up for us back down into our body, then eventually it's going to manifest as disease and illness and accidents. We end up breaking ourselves. So if we can find the courage at this point, with all of this energy that's around us at the moment, to just sit with it and just allow it to come up, then it's an amazing opportunity.
And
But
it
if we
feels,
get drawn, sorry.
sorry, I was just going to say, the fact that the sun is in Cancer as well, like Cancer is connected with the moon and the emotions, and yet on this full moon, the moon is actually in Cancer, in Capricorn, which is the opposite. So I feel that Capricorn type issues are more likely to come up. So it could be being triggered by coldness, by patriarchal systems, by fathers, by controlling um, difficult, cold relationships, this kind of thing. These are more likely to be the themes that come up, or where we felt abandoned, rejected, repressed. Any of those kind of themes
Yeah,
that are coming from out of alignment, toxic, masculine, bully energy,
yeah,
any of that is going to be really heightened. So it's
yeah,
just remembering, the sun is in Cancer, and you deserve to give yourself that genuine love.
yeah,
Literally giving yourself a cuddle.
yes, yes. Yeah, and again, that exactly what you said relates in the human design chart as here. So we've got the 37th gate in retrograde in Saturn, so it's all about our structures. And this in the emotional solar plexus is talking about the family structure and the equality. So this doesn't necessarily mean the family structure, it can be any structure, but again, it's talking about equality. It's talking about, the patriarchal, energy that's on the planet at the moment, and bringing that into balance. This is very much about gender, and not in the sense of physical gender. This is about energetic. This is about the yin and the yang, getting the balance right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So wherever that has been suppressed or out of balance within the individual, that will come up. So,
Yeah.
for example, we may see the rising of out of balance yin yang energy in others.
Hmm.
We don't need to feed that and get angry and project our splurge
No.
onto that. We can sit back and notice. Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've also got the energy doubled up actually in the moon and also in the earth energy, which is what we use in human design, of the fighter.
Oh,
So the fighter is here, but this is fighting for the right, not just any old fight,
yeah.
and it's also what we call a projected gate. So it's really important to be invited to that fight. Don't get yourself involved in things that aren't yours. you know and even if it is yours, assess whether, is this the right time, is this the right provocation that I've been needing to help me move forward. So this comes off the root center, which is all about a pulse, and the pulse is either on or it's off. This is the energy of pressure. And for anybody that's open in this energy, they will actually feel the pressure of others to fight, to provoke. So it's about raising that awareness. Don't get into the provocation, don't get into the fight if it's not yours. But this is an on and off pulse. So for others who are defined in that area, or even if you're undefined in that area, it's about waiting for the right moment. This is the energy that makes you stand up and do something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come from the mind. This is a physical experience. So
Mm-hmm.
if you find yourself on your feet and and feeling provoked, then again, just assess: is this for me? Is this my opportunity? Am I actually being invited to shift something in my own life, not other people's, in my own life? This is all about us.
Mm.
And then taking that responsibility, because we also have appearing here in one of the fear gates is the fear of taking responsibility. And this is where we can start projecting onto other people.
Right, that's very interesting. Fear of taking responsibility. I mean, that feels very much like it's speaking into the whole polarity of those like ego-based narcissistic behaviors versus victimhood, you know,
Yeah,
all of that, the whole
yeah.
spectrum of those energies. Which gate is that again, Nikki?
That's the 50th gate.
Right. Okay.
And this is in the South Node. So it's something that we're moving away from.
Yeah,
And when we look at how the spiritual community is growing, to me spirituality is about taking responsibility for yourself,
of course.
owning your environment, owning your physical environment, owning your emotional environment, owning your mental environment and your spiritual environment.
Mm.
So this is about really provoking us to see. It's provoking the spirit. How do we know who we are unless we're provoked? How do we respond in a provocation when we're poked? What do we do? Do we go into victimhood? Do we start blaming other people? Or do we sit quietly with ourselves and figure out what it is that we haven't seen? We have a choice. And the other thing that's coming up as well for this week, in particular, if anybody is opening their crown, ajna, and throat, there's an opportunity for energies to be linked up. So I know in particular, I've got the 61st gate, which is going to link with this 24, and I've got the 43rd gate, which is going to link up with the 23. So for me in particular, I'm opening all of these areas. But this week, I'll find that whatever awareness I'm experiencing, I'm going to be able to articulate.
Brilliant.
So for myself, normally I'm very on and off in this area. I can have a whole idea, I can have a whole concept, but can I speak it? No.
Oh,
But for this week in particular, there's going to be a channel. But again, it's a projected channel. And when we talk about projected channels in human design, it's about waiting to be invited to speak, waiting to be invited to do something. And
mm.
the invitation comes from when somebody recognizes you and values what you have to say. So we don't have to go around splurging out to everybody all these insights that we've experienced, because sometimes that can, if you're saying it to the wrong people, it can make us look a bit strange. I've been called weird, you know, um, and it can isolate us a little bit. So it's about finding the correct audience. It's about finding the right people, your tribe, you know,
Mm.
and not trying to reach out to people, again going back to these family structures in particular, not going back to family if they don't understand the work that you do.
Yes.
That's always played a big theme in my life.
Yeah.
And so it's about reach out to the people who can hear you, reach out to the people who value what it is that you have to say, and recognize the wisdom that you bring. Don't splurge it to everybody. It's not for everybody. These are your gifts. These are your insights. So value them, honor them.
And such wise advice. Very, very wise. And also, I feel called to say that now that we also have Neptune in retrograde, as well as Pluto in retrograde, and a full moon, and this will be the last full moon in Capricorn under a Pluto in Capricorn, like literally ever. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
This is it. This is it. So if you are feeling that this is a big weekend, it is. And then maybe because there's this retrograde energy happening, it may be bringing up things that have happened in the past, and possibly I would say connected with this Capricorn energy, bringing the masculine, feminine, yin yang within up. So any of the things that you just said that Nikki was talking about, making sure that you're saying things to the correct audience and sit with what's actually coming up for you. This might be a retrospective review. It might be that you're going back to a time when, I mean, this is for me, going back to a time when it was like, I feel like no one around me can understand what I'm saying. And I always used to feel like this must be because of my communication error.
Yeah.
And I wasn't realizing that these people were all the wrong audience. There was many varieties of wrong audience that showed up. And that I know is something for me to retrospectively process and heal, that all of the people I was vouching for,
Yeah.
towards, it was like actually nobody at that time was the correct audience. So it's almost like the process for me is going back to the 8 years ago version of myself who's on antidepressants and beta blockers and going, there's a really good reason that 2015 Rachel feels like shit. And I want to go back and reach into her and say, it's okay. Because in
Yeah.
8 years' time, I'm going to be chatting with this amazing lady called Nikki. We've got it. We can put this to bed once and for all. You are literally surrounded by the whole wrong audience. It's okay.
Yeah.
We do lots of work over this next 8 years, and we end up finding the right audience. You do find
Yeah.
your tribe of people
You
who can
do.
understand. Yay!
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a real theme for projectors. I mean, we're both projectors.
Yeah.
And there's only 22% of us on the planet. And when I do readings for people and I say to them, you're not for everybody, you know, the relief that comes from that, I just say, see yourself as Marmite. People are going to love you or they're going to hate you. We have a really powerful, wise message to get out there, but it's only when we're invited, because it's so powerful, the message that we have. People need to be in the right space. And a lot of projectors go around going, why aren't I being heard? Nobody wants to hear me. And there's that real feeling of loneliness and rejection. And the moment that people get to understand that they're projectors, suddenly there's this relief that comes, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just how I'm communicating. I just need to wait to be invited.
Well, for me, actually, that was a grieving process as well. Because when at first, when I realized I was a projector, I was like, this is amazing. This totally explains everything. And then I went into a grief period of going, I spent all those years of my life being out of alignment, trying to be like manifesting generators, because that's kind of
Yeah,
societal conditioning and expectation. And
yeah,
I'm not designed to do that. So you have to do that.
yeah.
It is like a grieving process when you're doing the deconditioning, really, isn't it?
It is, and I think once you've come out of the grieving process, once you come into the other side of it, you start to see the gift in it, and you start to see, actually, that's really toned up my communication skills.
Yeah.
It's really toned up my, you know, fear of rejection. It's really toned up all of these things inside of me that I had to go through,
Mm.
you know, just because I carry this aura that needs to be invited.
That's right. And so for me, you're talking about audience and the correct audience and being invited. In 2017, I received the wisdom, I will write a book. So I knew I was going to write a book. It took a while to realize I was living the plot line, and it was actually a personal awakening journal, if you like. But
Mm.
um, then knowing that I go on to create create the invitation, and remember my soul's desire to
Yeah,
put all of this in a book, then
yeah,
of course it makes when I realized that the messages are designed for the format of a book, which is a one-to-many big audience potentially,
yeah,
then
yeah,
I realized how my poor mother couldn't understand the level of stuff coming out of my mouth because
yeah.
she she's not the correct audience,
No,
if the book
no.
is the correct audience.
Yeah, yeah. And particular, projector children with generator parents, of course, the parents are going, well, I'm the eldest, I know better. And actually the projector generally does know more than the generator. So they take the lead on that. And not in practical things, but wisdom wise. So again, this is a real opportunity here for projectors to relook at the family structures and how out of balance the communication was within their field. Same for manifestors. Manifestor children have extremely controlling parents, because if a manifestor can do something, they will do it. They're here to initiate and get things started. And again, this can be a real pain point around the traditional structures of the household around parenting. This is something that I see a lot.
Yeah, and manifestors are an even smaller percentage than projectors, aren't
Yeah,
they?
they're 9%. They're 9%.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm hearing from what you're saying about your book and the writing of the book and how that's all flowing out of you, this is you now getting out of your own way and taking that responsibility for the channel that you are. We're all here as conduits for love,
Yeah.
but if we keep gunking ourselves up with all of these emotions,
Yeah.
anything that is in fear is not true. It's a falsehood. So it's about taking a look at that fear is rising up in me, but it's not love. I am a being of love, so anything other than that is false.
Mm.
So if we can start looking at it from a mind point of view, this is where we can really engage the mind, you know and start to look at it as, well, there's no meaning in that. It's just fear rising up in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's when we start attaching meaning to that it can create problems in our life. I'm in fear because of this person. I'm in fear because of this situation. I'm in fear because I don't have enough money. When we can really reframe that, and not apply meaning to it and just feel the raw emotion as it is, then that's when we can really make these quantum leaps and really take responsibility and be that pure channel of energy that the universe wants us to be.
How do you, and I suppose this is a personal process question. When you allow yourself to feel all of that raw emotion and allow it to rise, do you have your own process for then moving through that and releasing it?
Yeah, what I tend to do is, I mean, there are times when you can't control it. It comes up, and if you can get, a few moments to yourself, then it's great. If you can take a toilet break if you're at work when it happens, or go make a cup of tea or whatever. Or if you have the luxury of being able to spend, a good 20 minutes with it, then it's just allowing it to rise up in you. And what I will say is, it does take courage to do this, because emotions can be very powerful. And what we tend to do is, if they are too powerful, we will suppress them, or we'll try and escape from them by switching the TV on, or going and have a cigarette, or go to the pub and get drunk. There are varying degrees of how we can distract ourselves. or we can project it onto other people and we can blame other people and complain about them. And there's a fourth way that we manage our emotions, and that's repress them, and that is really deeply unconscious. We're not even aware that the emotion is there. So there are many different outlets that we can have for our emotions. So if an emotion feels too much for me, if I'm really feeling overwhelmed by it, then I will be consciously aware that I'm having an escape. So when I'm bringing consciousness to it and I go, right, okay, I just need a break from this for a minute. I'm going to watch the TV for an hour. I'm consciously saying to my body, don't worry, it's all fine. We're going to come back to this, but just for now, it's just a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's not the right time. I can't do it fully. I can't give it my full attention, but I want you to know that we're gonna do this next time that this comes up. And by giving yourself permission, it starts to settle the body, and the body becomes more willing then to allow these emotions to rise, because the emotions are the body's language. The body is saying with the emotion, there's something wrong here, I don't like this. And if we keep ignoring those emotions and unconsciously escaping and unconsciously projecting onto other people and unconsciously suppressing them, then we're going to find ourselves with physical problems manifesting into the body, because we've missed the belief system, we've missed it on a mental level, we're ignoring it on an emotional level. So then guess what? The body's going to tell you,
Yeah.
and it's going to create pain for you, and it's going to break.
Yep.
And that's the point where we're getting into the realms of physically damaging ourselves, and then we lose our home. Our body is our home. How on earth can we manifest our purpose if we haven't got a body to do it?
Yeah.
And what I've learned through my trauma tracking over the years as well, when I've worked with people, is that, when you relieve grief in yourself, you're relieving it on so many timelines. You're relieving it for the people that are around you, that you're a massive ripple effect. So even if you can't muster up the courage to do it for yourself, do it for the people that you love. Start with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
That's kind of how I deal with it. But I don't give it any outlets. And what I mean by that is, as long as I can stay with it, I don't, it might come up, oh, that person said that to you, and you might want to aim it back at that person, but actually they're just the trigger for underlying grief that's in you anyway, that could have come from anywhere. It could have come from the person that's sitting next to you. We absorb so much that we're not aware of. So let's try not to pin the emotion on anyone or anything or any situation, because we don't know where it's come from. It could be ancestral, it could be our spiritual lineage, it could be karma, it could be anywhere. We have no clue. So if we can just sit with it and allow it just to rise.
Now, if we do have, let's just talk about this for a moment. If, say, we did have awareness through some of our processing that we'd done or guidance we'd received, if we did have awareness that we were karmically soul contracted to be involved in a situation, let's just say, it's all very hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's just say that if we had the awareness of that, what would be your advice about, let's just say that was in a family system, and there's no way that you can make another person wake up. That's their responsibility, isn't it? Would you just talk a little bit about your views on how we can, if we've got that awareness, but still stay in our own lane and on our purpose, just taking responsibility for ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you've said. It's about, if we are aware, it's about taking responsibility that this is a contract. We made a contract. We have an agreement to be here and do this work. So it's about taking responsibility for that. Where it becomes sticky for people is when we don't realize that there's a contract going on, when we think somebody is doing something to us.
Yeah.
Instead of, we're co-creating this. And the moment that you start working on yourself by releasing those emotions, releasing those belief systems, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, you don't just suddenly wake up and go, oh, great, I've got the answers to everything. This is a lifetime's worth of work. But if we can chip away, chip away, chip away, and keep taking responsibility for the emotions and our belief systems and question everything that you know,
Mm.
you know, something only means something when we apply a meaning to it. So really start to evaluate what you apply
Mm.
to certain situations, because it's all based on our own perspective. It might not be true. I mean, how many times have you been judged for something and you're going, I don't know where that judgment's come from. That isn't me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just be the recipient of somebody else's projected stuff. It's like,
Yeah,
what's happening? That's not
yeah.
me.
Because somebody else outside of you applied a meaning to what you just said
Yes.
or what
Yes.
you just did. Doesn't mean to say that you said that or did that or implied that or meant that.
Mm.
It's just their realization of it. And people in particular who have experienced a lot of childhood trauma are really quite sensitive to language and visuals as well. So it's about recognizing that it's our meaning that we place. These are our emotions. We've got to keep bringing it back to us.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are the creator of all of our experiences, and if we want to emotionally vomit over everybody, then guess what? We're going to get it back. So we have to change our frequency. If we want anybody to change around us, and again, as you say, we don't have that power, but we start with changing us, and that changes our frequency, and people interact with that differently.
Yes, they do.
And it may be as a result that they change, but we've got to keep it contained within ourselves. We've got to bring it back to us.
Yes, we are not responsible for somebody else's path, trajectory, level of awareness or anything like that,
No,
are we?
no.
Yeah, I remember telling my mum about various things that were going on in my awakening process and revealing to her that I was, a person who was able to recall and visualize in visionary memory my past lives and various aspects of things. And at first she was like, what? What's Rachel saying? And
Yeah,
now it's really interesting because a few years on, I just like I chose to say portions of my truth that felt correct in front of the correct audience at whatever point, but just uh, doing that within a container of, I know that she's not got these experiences, but I love her anyway. I know she loves
yeah,
me anyway, even though we're very different. And
yeah.
now, a few years on, she's got a high level of tolerance to listening about any of my stories, but also, it's really improved her own contact with the subconscious realms. And sometimes she'll be very freely expressive about her dream life and understands that we can have connected
Mm,
dreams. Now,
yeah,
if I go back 10 years, I wouldn't have ever imagined that we'd ever be at this place, and yet we
no,
are. So,
yeah, yeah.
it's sometimes slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah, and I think when you release your expectations on what you want somebody to get from something, we all have agendas,
Yeah,
and like you say, she hasn't got that experience. She's
yeah,
not experiencing that.
yeah,
So for her, it's quite alien, and for somebody to start talking about these things, I know I've done this with my family, and they think I'm crazy,
yeah,
and still do, but it's like you say, you can't awaken somebody, and it's
no,
when we start to own our gifts, when we really start to own our gifts, then things start changing. And I've certainly noticed a shift towards discussions within my family. um you know, when I talk about the solstice now, I get happy solstice messages or happy solstice cards and things like that. And
yeah,
I think that's wonderful. I think it's absolutely brilliant that they're recognizing, and I don't say anything around the solstice. This is on them actually, thinking, oh right, okay, Nick celebrates the solstice, which is amazing. And I love that. I love that.
yeah, and it's that just, it's not even that there's a slow chipping away, it's just like very confidently being in your own genuine, truthful light vibration,
Yeah,
being yourself. And people hear and feel that, don't they? And
mm,
then, we're not responsible for how that impacts others, but it does impact others. We know
yeah,
that it does.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wonderful. I think that's probably all that we've got to say about the charts there. Is there
Mm,
anything that you'd like to, we've covered lots of things there, but is there
we
anything
have.
you'd like to say in conclusion or summary to hold the space for this full moon?
Yeah, I would just say to anybody out there that's watching this, just try to be the observer. Don't get too pulled in, especially other people's drama. You don't need to be involved in other people's drama. We have enough coming to us as it is anyway. So if you can find that calm place within yourself, just to experience, observe, see it for the gift that it is, find the gift in it, and not be provoked into something that isn't for you. That's, I would say, that's the most important thing, really.
Yes, yeah, really being aware of that sort of trigger and response dynamic at this
Mm,
time.
mm,
It does feel very powerful to me, and I will just say to anybody watching, my key advice would be take a little bit of time to process just your own emotions, and a journal. Just get your
yes.
pen and a journal
Yeah,
and some
absolutely.
time, and do all the things that bring you back into balance, such as movement, being in supportive places, being with supportive people.
Mm,
So yeah,
yeah,
thank you so
beautiful.
much for joining me for this full moon in Capricorn experience. Thank you.